learn the order of things. When you learn the order of things, a lot of stuff won't confuse you, stymie you, or leave you with more questions of why. You don't have to be confident. You don't have to know a lot. You just need to be able to move. Don't try to start, just do. Don't try to know a lot, just be. The first thing we ever are is beings. Like I said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the order that I want you to remember is to be who it is that you want to be, so that you can behave to do the stuff that that person does, so that you can have the stuff of who you are. Don't get it confused. Stop doing stuff so that you can have things, so that you can finally believe that you are this being. And do it scared, but courageous. That's all I want you to do.
You got challenges that you're going to run across.
Welcome to another episode of Elite Psyche. So welcome to another episode of Elite Psyche, the Mental Toughness Show. I'm Tony Fleming, and this is probably, 100th episode that we're doing. And what we do on Elite Psyche, we have different guests that we interview, people who have had success in life, people who have gone through some things, because you need to have this elite psyche, which is, this excellent mind, spirit, and soul, just to live life. So when we interview people, a lot of times, people have had success or some people, are dealing with some things, but that psyche and that mental toughness is what people need to win in life. And today I have another special guest, Miss Michelle Spiva. And, I saw Michelle on YouTube on her podcast, and I watched her one day, and then the next day I saw her again, and then kind of missed another day. But then the next day I was just scrolling, going to my page, and I saw her again. And so I'm listening to her, and she has so much information and so much knowledge. I'm like, wow. I mean, I thought she was AI or something. I thought she was a robot or something. But I looked at her on the screen, and she was doing something on her face. I said, okay, that's not AI, but she has a whole lot of knowledge. So what I did was I went right into her, I think it was an Instagram messenger, or what do you call it, DM. And I asked her, I said, look, can I interview you? I'd like to really know more about you, and I'd like to get the information from her that she has to give out. And it's not going to be just the interview with her. She's going to kind of co-host it too, because we got some topics that we're going to go over tonight. So without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Michelle here. And her podcast is Brilliant Quest, is with an S, right?
Yes.
Okay, with an S. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about it, and how you got started with it. And then we're going to kind of, jump into some things. I know you got a lot that you could say, because I've been watching you. So can we get a round of applause for Miss Michelle?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Now
all right. Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Fleming, for having me on here. I do appreciate you. And about Brilliant Quest. So Brilliant Quest started after what I called a 7-year odyssey of going through hell on a cobweb. I guess you can tell that this is gray hair and it is earned. It's not dyed. And so I went through my hormonal odyssey of what we would call the change, and everything that I was able to depend on, my mind, my ability to think, went out the door. And I had to struggle for 7 years. And during that time, I had a previous podcast called Wisdom Smack, where I did 410 episodes. And right before the pandemic, I stopped it because I couldn't go on anymore. But during the time between 2020 and now, I still had people that would listen to the podcast all the time and send me messages saying, please, do more episodes. But this time, can you do them via video? And I was just like, I don't want to, don't want to be on camera. And I I will say, just even having to comb my hair was one of my big things. Like, I don't want to have to comb my hair because she's a lot. She's got her own mind. But finally, I decided when I started feeling much better and feeling more like myself again, that I would start it back up. But coming back, I was like, something has happened. Like I said, I've gone on this odyssey, and now it's like I'm returning with the goal of having these quests that are born out of brilliance, of taking control, of shaping and sharpening my mind, working with the emotions, behaviors, and all of those things so that I can craft my world and take people along with me. And so this time, I believe that this podcast is more robust because it has a lot of the experiences that I've gone through. A majority of what I'm sharing and telling people is stuff that it's my experience. It's what I've either recently gone through or going through, and I'm taking us along so that people can go through the quest, the brilliant quest with me. And so I even have it now where I'm starting to get a little tribe, and I call them my brilliant beaux and beauties, my brilliant questers. And so it's really been a blessing to have come back and in these few amount of months been well received. So thank you for listening. I don't know if I can count you as a brilliant beau yet or not, but we'll see if you come back and continue
Yeah,
to listen. But
I'm there.
that's the journey.
I'm there. So, when you saying that initially you said wisdom smack. I love that title. So you were smacking them with some wisdom.
Yes.
Okay, so now sounds like all of those were audios. You were on
Mhm.
Spotify or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you created that
Mhm.
and then you just let it go. You said you had go through some challenges.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So now, but you back now. But tell us a little bit about your life before that. Where you from and what kind of other things were you doing? You know what I'm
All
saying?
right.
Was it
Well, I'm not gonna give y'all enough to go and steal my social
okay?
out
Okay.
there,
All right.
but I grew up in Louisiana, and but I was born in the Chicago metro area. But I grew up in Louisiana from a
Okay.
very young age, in a small town where there is a university, and the university is Grambling State University. So went through the school. I did not go to college there. Actually, I
Right.
ended up going to another HBCU in New Orleans called Xavier, and so I'm a Xavierite. I'm a Xavier graduate, and then I was going to go and become a psychiatrist. That's what I really wanted to do because I was always fascinated with why and how people think. But in my senior year of pre
Mhm.
med, I discovered that I didn't want to do that. And I actually went the total opposite and went to seminary at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
Wow.
yes, yes, I went through that program. By the time I got done, I knew that wasn't for me either.
Okay.
So I
Did you meet the junior or Robert's son?
oh yeah, I was one of the Oral Roberts traveling singers. So yeah,
Oh,
we met
really?
him. Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
And so I finished
Why?
there.
But why is it? Why was it not for you?
Um, because of my mind.
Okay.
I have a very high curiosity quotient.
Mhm.
I didn't know what that word meant until many years later, but I would stay into it with the professors. I always wanted not to know why. I wanted to know why they settled here. To me, life is all about continuous momentum, questing. And I would I would end up my mouth would get me in trouble where I would end up having professors giving me extra assignments just to shut me up. and, and then after that, and you've heard this, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible. Uh, I really got a chance to understand and see for myself that we really are first natural, then spiritual, and that certain areas call certain types of people. And the people who tend to be successful may not be the ones who need to be successful. I'll say it like that.
No,
I
you got to
was,
do more than that. You got to give us more. What do you mean by that? And
I
when you say we're more natural than spiritual, what were you saying there?
human, meaning human. Nobody is a saint, meaning
Hmm.
that because I was able to work in the administration. Now, this is the funny part. I worked in the president's office when I was at Xavier. And I think because of that, when I got to seminary, I worked in admissions.
Hmm.
And and I worked in the grad admissions where we had exposure to the sun, to all the people you would see on
Hmm.
TBN.
Yeah, right.
We would know them intimately. They were because they were coming in and out all the time, especially during certain seasons when they would have meetings. And so
Hmm.
to them, to me, they were not these bigger than life people on TV. They were, okay, well, you got to get, Pastor Marilyn Hickey this, you got to get TD Jakes that, you got to just, and
Right.
all of that. And then after I graduated, I worked for, I don't know if, I think they're still in business, but I worked for a conglomerate called Harrison House Publishers.
Hmm.
And I worked on books for Joyce Meyer, T.D. Jakes, Marilyn. I mean, all of these people. And so, because I got a chance to, and I'm not saying that these people are bad or anything.
Is that Bob Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, the speaker,
Yes.
right? He would go
Yeah. Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had some of his tape series back in the
Yeah.
day.
And but
Okay,
they own a lot of different publishing imprints.
okay.
So I ended up, two things happened. I stayed there 2 years after I graduated, working for this publishing house. Two things happened. My grandmother ended up having a really bad stroke, and she had to be moved from Louisiana, where we grew up, to a rehabilitation center in Birmingham. And I was coming back and forth trying to see her and all of that kind of stuff. And then she got better, went back home, and I'm thinking everything is fine. And she has another kind of situation where my family was like, we're going to have to, do something. And I was coming back, driving back from having visited home in Louisiana on a Memorial Day, May 1997, I want to say.
Hmm.
And I got stuck in a tornado, a real,
Wow,
a
a
real
real
tornado,
tornado,
a real tornado. And let me just put it this way: I
like
called
one of
my
those.
grandma. Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's I need a bruh for that. You actually was driving and you saw it.
Yeah, to the point where I had to pull over, angle the car in the ditch after, God bless them, a truck driver was coming the opposite way and was like, get off from under the bridge and angle
Yeah,
your car in,
right.
to the ditch. And so it was a whole bunch of us. And we rode it out in the ditch, and I got a chance to see the hand of God because the tornado touched down maybe about, I want to say, 500 feet, which was, it was like it was right here. And just the power of it, it imploded into the earth so hard that it split out in two. And one went up away from us, and the other one went sideways and took out this little mobile home. And it was burning the ground. And it wasn't raining. It sounded like boom, 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 like they sometimes say a locomotive, but it's
Mhm.
because that pressure is in the air, and it's electric, and it's just a different feeling. And there's this wall of clouds that come, and it's a crazy.
So it missed you all. It was coming towards y'all
Mhm.
and then split.
Oh, well, actually, it was coming toward us, but it stopped about, like, I'm guesstimating 500, because there was a little hill up where we could look up from the ditch and see it. And when it split off into those two fingers and did that, I knew then. I was like, oh yeah, it's time to go. And so that was Memorial Day weekend. The first week of June, I was in Atlanta
Wow.
because I had a sister who stayed here, and that it was easier for us to check on my grandmother with us being, in the Atlanta area. And so I've been in Atlanta ever since. Thank you for letting me tell that
Okay.
story.
So your grandmother was in Birmingham.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's where she ended up. She
Okay.
was going back and forth to Louisiana because the older you are, you don't want to leave your home.
Right.
And my
Yeah.
grandfather wasn't doing too well without her there either. She's like, I gotta get home. He's gonna burn down the house.
Well, Birmingham is my hometown, so
Oh wow! I
yeah,
want to say it was Shepherd Center or something like that. I don't,
I've
I
heard
don't,
of it. I think I've
don't
heard
miss.
of
Oh
it.
yeah, it's been many years. But yeah, so this is where
So,
I've
so
been.
you went through all of that.
Mhm.
You went to Xavier, got your seminary degree at Oral Roberts, and
Mhm.
did you use any of that? Did you use anything from Xavier or anything from Oral
Everything.
Roberts?
The good thing is everything I've done, I've used because when I was at ORU, I got a Master's of Divinity with a concentration in counseling. And so I used that for many years. I worked with churches and parachurch organizations offering counseling or either putting together a little something for them to have for when they offered lay counseling.
Was this
Um,
with a company or was this you with your own company?
just me, just and it wasn't even me doing it as a company. I always kept a job so that I didn't have to charge churches to do this.
Wow.
And that's why I said I used everything because my senior year, I condensed, I condensed a whole nother program. I graduated with a chemistry slash business marketing degree, and
Okay.
so I was able to use the business and marketing to get jobs and things like that. And then when I worked for the airline, the local airline here, I was strongly encouraged to go
When
back
you
and get
say local airlines, you talking about the big dog Delta.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no
yeah. But
local.
you don't have to put all my business out there. I'm not
Yeah, but
trying
I'm
to
saying
interview.
a little local airlines, like I'm saying.
Yeah, but
I'm
you're
like, I'm
putting my
trying to
business
think,
out there. I don't want to put my whole
but I'm
resume.
trying to think, what's local airlines? You know what I'm saying? Oh,
Just saying. So yeah, there.
okay.
Um, I ended up getting an MBA with a concentration in finance
Mhm.
because of what I did at Delta. And once I left there, I was like, I had a short little stint at another little place, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done with corporate America. Because this was around 2007-ish,
Mhm.
and they were really gaslighting Black folk a lot
Yeah.
and doing things.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I had enough strength to believe in myself, and they couldn't believe it. It's like, well, we made you go get this master's, and but we're going to promote this other guy
Wow.
who barely has a undergrad,
Right.
and you're not you applied, but we're not going to hire you for it, but we're going to get you to train him. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
so that
So
was around.
so so you walked away from that. You said now
Yeah.
that was right before the real estate bust. The what happened? I mean, were that was like 2007 or 2008 is when the crash happened.
I got caught in it. I had a
Okay.
lot of properties and all of that. And
Okay.
Tony, we're not going to talk about that
All
because
right.
I don't want to cry.
I guess don't do that then. Okay. Let's get to Brilliant Quest. So you started that back. So tell us, because you have so much information when I'm listening to you, you just going and going. Like I said, I thought it was AI on there talking. And so
I am
wh-
not AI.
well, what do you when you get ready to do one of your podcasts, how do you decide on what you're going to talk about? I mean, what do because I'm more like interviewing people, but you're more like just you talking. You really, I mean, like I said, I'm going through them like, man, she's still going. What is how do you decide on that?
Well, I have always had this sense of knowing on a macro level
Mm-hmm.
what is going on. And so I usually can sense, feel, or even pluck out of the atmosphere
Mhm.
things that are going to help people. I call it scratching where people are itching. You know,
Okay.
it's not necessarily what people are craving or wanting, but it's what will help them to get to that, that part in the back that they can't really
And you playing the
scratch.
music that's gonna make them dance.
Exactly.
So scratch where you itch, play the music so they can dance. I got you.
Yeah. And that too, when I left Delta, I decided I was going to go back and just see people on my own, outside of a church setting or anything like that. And I was fine when I did it for, let's see, 97 through, yeah, 97, 2007. So it was 16 years. And when I said I was going to open my own practice, all of a sudden, Georgia is like, well, your credentials are old, basically calling me old. And we've changed. And now you can't just work on a master's degree and be a psychologist. You have to get a PhD in
PhD.
psychology.
Yeah.
Mhm. So again, I went back and I was like, I cannot. I was so angered. I was
Right,
like,
right,
"No."
right.
But at the time, I really kind of wanted to work with people because that's where um, my heart was.
Mhm.
I have a penchant for helping people to be the sovereign masters of themselves, and the way you do that is by being able to understand that you are not your mind. You can step out of this mind and watch this mind in this world, and uh, do so much more that you'd be amazed at what power we have. And at the time, I was like, I was a rule follower. I was like, okay, I'll get the certifications. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I went and spent a couple of years in that seven-year program. And I was like, enough.
For
And
a
I was like,
PhD, it
I
was a
was like,
7 year.
well, they were telling me that mine would be 4 because of credits I was able to use, but I couldn't take it anymore. It was draining
You're a
me
professional
financially.
student. You was becoming a
Yeah,
professional student.
yeah, and I was just like, I can't. And I'm getting the student loans and all that kind of stuff. So I left. I ended up writing romance novels.
I'm not letting you get away with that stepping outside of your mind until what did you say?
What are you
You
saying?
said you could literally step outside your mind.
Everybody can. This is not
Okay.
woo woo. This is
Okay.
not woo
So
woo.
talk more about that. What do you mean stepping outside your
Let
mind?
me finish. No, I'm just playing.
Wait a minute, hold on. Because if you're not gonna come, I don't want you to get away from that. So you're
I'm
gonna
gonna.
come back. I'll let you finish if you gonna
No,
come back to
I'm
that.
messing with you.
Oh,
Please
okay.
forgive me.
All right.
No, what I mean
No,
is
I do
that.
want you to finish though. But I do
Oh
want to
well,
hear
all I
that.
was just saying was, um, I started writing romance novels and started realizing, and I was doing it because during the program, you couldn't have a job. You would go to your classes during the day, and then you would work for the professors you were assigned to at night. And they told you're not gonna be able to keep a job. And and I was just like, I'm a grown person. Yeah,
Romance novels. Is it something like as she lay in the sun and the sun shines on her breast as they lay on the beach? One of
yeah,
those? Oh
yeah.
my God.
Uh,
Right.
they pay the bills.
I understand. So, yeah.
And so they ended up taking off to where I was able to take care of myself without
From the
needing,
romance novels.
yeah, needing to continue on. And so when everything was said and done, they were like, well, if you're not, because I again, I worked in the admissions
Okay.
office. And I went into the dean because I was assigned to the dean. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, look, I'm coming in from out the fields. I'm tired of picking cotton.
No,
And I
you
was like,
didn't.
I'm done. I'm done. And so he was like, well, let us at least see if you've, earned enough credits. And so I had earned enough credits to get a psychology master. So that means I have counseling, divinity, finance,
Wow.
and psychology.
Wow.
And so I told you that story so that you could understand that I was the dumb dumb. it took me going through all of these different things to just end up back where I knew I always wanted to be. And that was to live a life of being able to realize the best life I could. And everything kept coming back to the understanding that we are not our bodies, we're not even our minds. We are spiritual beings having a human existence. The very reason that we can connect with a higher source, God, the Father, Son, Jesus, whoever you want to call it, is because we have that ability. And too many times I kept seeing people who were feeling trapped in their minds and their brains and their bodies, not understanding that you do realize the power that you have there. If that weren't the case, we would not be able to manifest stuff. And I'm not talking about law of attraction where you're attracting something to you. No, I'm talking about the creative force where you can write something on a dinner napkin, idea you have, and then you can take it and get other people to help you, and before you know it, what you created on a 2D surface of a dinner napkin is now a real thing in the earth. And that lets us know that we have that component to us. And so in Brilliant Quest, now I'm trying to do it as slowly as I can because I have learned over the years that you have to build on little bitty layers to get people, higher and higher. You can't just be like,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right, right.
And so getting folks to start learning how they learn and learning to watch themselves learn is something that's part of the quest for me right now, because
But
it's amazing.
you oversimplified right quick the stepping out. Go back to that because two things we gotta go back to.
Okay.
One, where you get the romance novel thing in your mind, how did you just think of that kind of book? I mean, how do you books?
Oh,
Name
okay.
one, one of your
I'm not
books.
doing that.
Okay.
I'm not doing
Well, you don't want me to go look at
I'm not here to promote those.
Okay, all right. But
Okay, so at the time, Adele had just come out with her debut album 21.
Mhm.
And that young lady was making so much money writing about her ex-boyfriend. At the time, I was dating a emergency room doctor. And I'm trying to go to school. He's trying to do that. And it's just crazy. And I was like, well, if Adele can make money, I can make money. And Kindle was fairly new. I think it came out in 2007, and this was like about 2010 when people were still just putting out little crappy little um, recipe books.
Mhm.
And I was, because I had gotten in the habit of having to write a research paper a week. And I was like, okay, well, just do the research paper quickly and then just write 3,000 word stories. And that's how I started. And at first they were horrible. People were like, Lord help her, bless her, this train wreck, But I learned through that because I was hungry and not hungry and driven. I was actually hungry because I
It
needed
was a little okay.
money. And the thing is, you couldn't tell them that you were working. And the funny part was, I had some friends in my cohort, and they were like, "You don't look as hungry. What are you doing?" So I ended up teaching 4 people in my grant program how to write and put the books up on Amazon. And it took off from there. I kept writing, and then I started teaching other people outside of that. And it really was a blessing.
Does it still
Because
pay
of
you?
huh?
Do they still pay you from that? You
Yeah,
still getting
yeah.
okay.
My books are still live. Yes, they are. Well,
Well, I'm gonna
the
find
first
one.
one,
I don't know if you got it under a different name, but I'm gonna find
I do have them under a different
okay.
name. Um,
All right, so
but
wait a minute. Let's step out the mind now. That thing there, I'm ready. Like you said, you can step.
okay. Now,
Anybody can
when I
step out.
say step out of the mind, I am not talking about lucid dreaming or any woo-woo stuff like that. I am talking about making sure that you understand that you are not your mind. When I would work with clients after the fact, because I could still see people, as a therapist and a clinical hypnotherapist. And so when I did work with people, a lot of times I had to first and foremost dehypnotize them from the trance-like states of years of programming that they were under, that they didn't even realize that they were walking around in a hypnotic trance,
Wow.
just fulfilling a script that had been pressed upon them.
You talking my
Once,
talk now. Go ahead.
yeah. So once we would get that established, the next thing that we would do, depending on what the person was trying to work on and trying to achieve, I started noticing that they didn't understand that their thoughts are not always their thoughts. And so I had to start telling people, don't believe everything you think.
Mhm.
Most of it's not yours.
Right.
And so I would see people with like invasive thoughts to do harm to themselves or others. And I'd be like, that's not your thought. What do you mean? I'm thinking it. No, that's not your thought.
Mhm.
And so starting
It's
to
a
work, and
program.
I'm talking about real people. This is
Right.
not because, oh, I thought it was great. No, I saw a need. And I was like, why is this not being addressed? There are
Right.
people marching to a drum beat that only they can hear, and they are believing that they're making the drum beat when
Wow.
they're not.
It's a program running.
Right. And so that's what I talk about when I said a brilliant quest is where you have the authority to craft the mind you want. When you master your mind, you can create your world. That's part of what brilliant quest is. You'll see it on the logo. Yeah. And it came out of that need for people to wake up, and I don't do the politics thing,
Mhm.
because it's just I can
Right.
be influential persuasive if I want to, and I don't want to persuade anybody when it
All
comes
right.
to that kind of stuff. And what I'll say is it's when you hear these words woke and how they've been co-opted into political agendas and things,
Man, they're
it
using it the wrong way. It's not even.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a sad thing, and especially when I hear melanated people
Yeah.
using it that way, and I'm like, first and foremost, I'm really big on the history of words.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that from,
Yes.
our previous
The
conversation.
conversation. Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to go and look at the history of what that word meant.
Word.
Your
Exactly.
ancestors would be ashamed for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And they understood way more than you ever will because of all of this invasive programming. And the programming is so insidious that it's kind of equivalent to the goldfish who's in the water, and someone outside says to the goldfish, how you like that water? And they're like, what water?
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point where people believe that this stuff is really real and that it's their mind. And
Right.
so that's why it's become so important, Tony, that if nothing else, if I can just even mention it to a person and say, you are not your mind. Your mind is yours to do with as you will.
Right.
When your mind is running amok, there are things that you can do to snatch it back in place and assert your dominance, your authority, and your sovereignty over it.
And when you talking, you're saying that, like I said, I thought it was AI talking. And I really want everybody who's listening to make sure you go to Brilliant Quest and listen. Now, in the beginning, it's kind of like meditation. She might be a little bit too much
No,
for you, but I'm telling you,
no.
but no. But you keep listening and then you're gonna really grab it, because you're talking the stuff that I've been talking for years, but the way you're putting it out is a whole different way that you and man, I really appreciate your podcast. I really do, because there's so much stuff out here, and me sitting there watching it, I'm like, I really do appreciate that. But
Thank
you're
you.
you're a co-host today, so
Okay.
we're gonna talk about some more stuff. Now, you don't know
Great.
what I'm about to play, but
I
I
do
want to
not.
get your thoughts on it. I got like 4 clips we're gonna play, and I told Valerie just play any of them, and we're gonna watch the first one, and then we're gonna come back and talk a little bit about it, because I want to hear your thoughts on it. So let's roll,
Okay.
Val.
I'm not passive aggressive at all. So what you'll never do is be in a room with me and I can sense something is wrong and me not say, hey, is there an issue? Would you like to talk about it?
Oh, fam, I am the exact opposite.
Yeah, are you?
I just leave you alone.
No, I want to know why. Because here's why. I think that the enemy does a great job at talking to people in their minds about something that's not true. And if the Bible says that the truth is what sets people free, I think that it is my responsibility to have a conversation with you, because the Bible says if you have an ought against somebody, go to them. I'd rather approach this situation and say, is there a problem, before I allow the enemy to continue to lie to you.
So let's go. Give me your thoughts on that one.
I totally agree with her.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason why I agree with her is not because it's so provocative, but because it is a therapeutic model. If you were coming to a therapist and there were issues that needed to be confronted, the therapist is trained to confront you. One of the issues that people have, and why this would even come up, everybody should be saying, yeah, that's the way to do it. But we're taught that confrontation should be done in anger, when confrontation is simply clearing. And we have a modality, if you will. Let me not use that word.
Okay.
We have a recipe
Okay.
to teach people how to get clear and to clear things. I have a personal statement that I say, and that is, if I find that you are passive aggressive, you will never make it past an associate with me, because passive aggression can get you killed.
Wow.
And yes, passive
Give
aggression.
me an example of that. Like, how could that happen?
Passive aggression is depending on the person, and a lot of times you don't have all of the information, but passive aggression, somebody who's been dealing in it for a while, they could be on the narcissism scale. There is a book, and I'm a book person, y'all.
Me too.
There is a book called Reimagining Narcissism, where he talks about this, where you can have gradients of narcissism. Passive aggression is an anger response, and it's a manipulation response. So when someone is capable of being passive aggressive, that means that they are capable of exerting negative and anger at you, but they're wanting to manipulate you and be deceptive so that you don't see the anger, the deception, and the negativity coming at you. Passive aggressive people have been known to get people killed for real,
So how would you pick that up? How, from a person, you're saying they wouldn't get any far from, not even a friend, they would just be associate. How would you pick that up just in conversation with them?
It's not necessarily in conversation, it's in relation. Passive aggression you can only really pick it up if you've had enough time to interact with that person. Passive aggression is through relationship, not association. And that's why I say they get downgraded to an associate at best. Some of the things with passive aggression, you'll notice that people attempt to punish you by ignoring you or being silent. That's a manipulative behavior. You'll notice passive aggressive people harbor and do what we would call sniper tactics. They'll say little snide things. Passive aggressive people will use bring the word back, Lord, bring it back. Contempt. They'll use contempt when they're dealing with you. And the funniest thing is their hope is that they will be covert in their actions. But when you spend time with them, their actions become blaring. If you're dealing with a passive aggressive person, I'm talking to you, and you suspect it, when you leave them, you're finding yourself questioning. See, passive aggressives are the grandparents of ghosting and gaslighting. And
Mm.
so what people are experiencing today, like, was that a compliment or was it not?
Right. Yeah.
That's
Now,
passive aggressive.
so listening to the guy, which is David, and he said he's the total opposite of that, but that doesn't make him passive aggressive.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
I took it, and I'm very
yeah,
familiar with David, and
mhm,
I've talked to him. I
right,
took it as how he says he would respond to a passive aggressive,
okay. Well,
and
oh,
not that
okay,
he's
how he would,
being,
okay, all right,
yeah, not
right.
that he's being passive
But it
aggressive.
sounds like to me that she is that kind of person that will address everything. And I'm thinking sometimes you can't address, I don't know if that's the case or not, but listening to her, it just
Mhm.
sounds like if anything comes out, she gonna catch it right then and say, hey, is that how you operate? Or because sometimes I know when I hear something, it might be later on that I respond to that person on that, or I might not even respond at all. But how do you operate? Do you respond to everything?
No, no, and I will say this: I don't know that young lady.
You're right. I don't either. Yeah, I just
I
saw the
don't
clip.
know her.
Mhm,
And I know energy doesn't lie.
mhm,
And there are just some people who have different mixes on the mixing board of life.
mhm,
Um, I'm gonna give you guys something that you can go look at that'll help you understand what I'm saying. In the therapy world, we stopped using personality testing for a lot of things because we started understanding that lifespan development means you are a different mix at 20 than you are at 40, at 30, at 50, at 70. And so instead of look at traits like the
mhm.
Myers
I know
Briggs,
you're talking
excuse
about,
me,
yeah.
or like the Enneagrams and all of
Mhm,
the popular ones that are out today.
mhm,
Instead, they codified traits of humanity that supersede culture and custom. You see, you can act a different way. So, say for instance, in America, you're an extrovert because that is lauded in America. This is the land of the individual. But if
mhm,
you were to go to Japan, you would be an introvert because that is what is lauded in Japan, to be
mhm,
reserved, self controlled, self governed, do not shine out. Everyone
mhm,
should be respectful in the life. And so that meant that it was based on culture, location, geography, and those types of things. So there is a 5 trait thing that you can look at. And I'm going to give it to you really quick, and then I'm going to apply it to the snippet that I saw. And
okay.
they have an acronym for it, 2 of them, so that you can remember them. And one is called Ocean. It's the same thing, these 5 traits. One is called
Mhm,
Ocean. The other one is called Canoe. Same letters, just different ways for you to remember it. Okay.
mhm,
So it's like a mnemonic device. So for each one of them, the 5 traits, how open are you? How conscientious are you? How extroverted are you? How agreeable are you? And how neurotic are you? That's Ocean, Ocean. And everyone has a slide for those. And so it helps you because based on where you are in your life, you might be very open when you're young. Something might happen to make you jaded so that you become less open, less trusting of people. You might be not so agreeable when you're young because that was the family constellation you came out of. But once you're free and you can
right.
be you, you become very agreeable. Uh, the extroversion, how out there are you? How introverted are you?
Mhm,
The neurotic, the conscientious, those are the 2 that really shine in these kind of situations. And don't think of them as big words. Conscientious, those are the people. How on time are you? How much do you value being prepared? It's that person that a lot of times gets called uptight because they're
mhm,
highly focused on doing and living to a standard that the average person doesn't if they're highly conscientious. But see, on the extreme about the extreme of the conscientiousness, that's the lackadaisical person, the laggard, the slothful person. Same scale, but just depending on where you're going. Okay. The
But the
neurotic,
terms that you're giving, though, it seems like to me, well, I agree with them, but I'm like, I look at it as, you're getting older and some things you just don't want to deal with anymore. It's like,
right.
is that the
That's
same?
yeah.
I ain't
That
trying to
is
argue with
why.
you. I ain't trying to, I don't like
Right.
all the loud noise. Is that
Yeah, that's
okay?
why you have those five. They were able to take all of these things and boil them down into five traits so that the average person can remember it. That's why they give you the acronyms of canoe or ocean so that
Hmm.
you can know. This is how people are able. Once they, I've had where I just tell people Wikipedia, the big five traits. Just go to Wikipedia and read them. I've had people come back to me and say, "Oh my God, you helped me stay on my job. I understand now that I am a lower neurotic than my manager, and now I know how to deal with them."
Mm.
There's a book by Vanessa, I forget her last name, but it's called Captivate, where she deals a little bit with it in that similar situation where she had a new hire and it wasn't going well. And when she went to the traits and she realized that she was thinking that they were just like her, and the way she was approaching them wasn't working because they were not as conscientious as her, but they were more neurotic than her. And when we're talking about neuroticism, we're talking about nervousness. We're talking about timidity. We're talking about the person who is highly or hyper sensitive to their surroundings and things that happen to them. And that does not mean that anything is wrong with them. It's just we all come in these different mixes, and depending on the stage of life we're in, those mixes can change.
But see,
And
here's the challenge though. That's so much knowledge and that's so much information. 90% of the country is not getting this. And so they're dealing with the way they deal with it. It's like, if I know that this person has this personality because I read this particular book or I sat down with you and you told me, now I know how to address it. Nobody's talking about that though. So
I'm telling people about it. I've done a whole video
well,
on
I
it.
mean, I'm saying you are, but I'm saying the world is not. So you
Well,
are,
that's why I'm out here doing this stuff so that I
yeah,
can
but
let people
but
know.
I'm just saying, yeah, I know you, the whole world is not going. My point I'm trying to make is this stuff should have been taught anyway. Why not? Why not?
Yeah,
Why not did we hear this coming up? Well, I already know. I'm just throwing this out to my people listening. I already know why the system is like the way it is. But
and even
yeah.
with that, and oh, let me put the bow tie on the
Mhm.
clip you showed.
Okay.
So that lady, the behavior that she was exhibiting,
Hmm.
suggests a high level of conscientiousness and a high level of extroversion. And David appeared to be less
Obvious,
on
opposite.
those. Neither is wrong.
Right.
It is just to understand the drivers. Like I said, if you think of a mixing board, a music mixing board where you have all these different levers, that's how you can look at these five traits. Like when you hear somebody say, "Today I got time," that means they have ratcheted up
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, their extroversion, and maybe the little pepper in the conscientiousness. Um, if people be like, "I don't have time, just I'm tired, leave me alone," their openness, their agreeableness has come down a little bit. And this is very freeing because this is not practicing medicine, but this is very applicable to Joe Q Public. You don't have to have any specialized training. You just go and look on Wikipedia for free. They will tell you the ranges, and they make so much sense that you can see it for yourself. That's part of taking authority over your mind so that now when you know how you think about something, you can then start to manage it. By just telling you about ocean and canoe now, something has broadened in your perspective that
Right.
you didn't know before.
Right. I got that. But what I'm saying is I'm always thinking of the person watching, the listener, and I'm always thinking of the masses.
Mhm.
And I always say this that people say the world's crazy, and let's go with that. Say everybody's crazy. Is it better? I mean, do you think what's easier? Developing and working on yourself so you can deal with the crazy world, or trying to change the whole crazy world? And I believe, like what you're saying, the information you're given, then you know how to deal with certain situations. But I just hate that, when I always talk about all the books and stuff, that I just hate that people don't read, and a lot of folks don't do certain these things. And it's like frustrating. It's almost like when you start talking to most people, they look at you like you crazy when you start talking about this. Kind of like how Dick Gregory said, you got the glasses on now. These people don't. But you got to get that information. I mean, that's what drew me to you, listening to your podcast and saying, oh my God. But it frustrates me that it should be 1 million people listening to it. But
and it will.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. But they want to hear that BS.
I'm really big on learning from the ancestors and learning that we have it wrong. The ancestors were way smarter than us, and they leave clues.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Bible says that you have a cloud of witnesses around you. There are always going to be more people who lived and passed away from this realm than there who are living today. And one thing about the ancestors, they have impressed upon me, learn the order of things. When you learn the order of things, a lot of stuff won't confuse you, stymie you, or leave you with more questions of why. And so just even the concept of undoing, we have a fancy word for it today. It's called reverse engineering.
Right.
Well, ancestors knew how to undo and unravel things to get to the core of it, to get to the beginning of it, and to get to areas that were weak, where they didn't necessarily have the stuff to replace it, but they were able to substitute. And one of the things that I want to say about how the ancestors still work through us is that we have to first and foremost understand that when something comes to us, and this goes back to when we were talking about woke, when something comes to us and it causes us to bristle because it's new, or it challenges our status quo of thinking, look and see if it's not a wink wink from the ancestors saying, wake up. And so when people look, there's a saying that says history may not repeat itself, but it has echoes. One of the things that folks don't realize, maybe not, is that there are cycles and there are seasons. And when I say don't realize it, they know it, but they don't know it. And when you have a cycle and a season, it is usually reminiscent of a previous cycle and season. There was a time called the Dark Ages in Europe, and it was right before an age called the Age of Enlightenment. Don't that sound like woke?
Right.
Yeah. So the Dark Ages were reminiscent of the programming that people have recently been under. When somebody can just stand there and look at you and say, well, I did it because my government said to do it. That's Dark Ages. But then you start getting the blinking of the awakening, of the enlightenment. And then there come the thought provokers. Now I still want to go back to this young lady. Based on the energy of the clip that you showed me, she would be classified as a weed puller. If you take the analogy of a garden, David would be more of a nurturer, watering the garden. Me, I would probably be a seed planter, bringing new stuff and putting it in the ground, and allowing someone to come and continuously water after me so it can grow. And then this young lady would see a weed. What are you doing here? You don't belong here. Up you go, and pull you out. And then they have people who are all around nurturers of the garden, who make the space for these people to exist in the garden. And a lot of folks don't realize that we all have a role to play. Even the people who benefit from what's grown from the garden They're
Mhm.
not necessarily doing the gardening, but they're still being beneficiaries
Right.
of the fruits of the garden. And so, when just taking that little thing, if
Mhm.
you come across something that is new, it does not mean that you were doing something bad before. It can really mean that because we're in a new age, a new dispensation of time, that it is for you at this time. And you probably needed it to come at this time because you weren't ready. There are a lot of people who would not be able to have been out there by themselves for years in an age of darkness, and they're enlightened. That's not where the masses, do well. And
Mhm.
so learning, like I said, unraveling of when does this look, like there's this book. I know I give out a lot of
Got
books.
another book. I got you.
There's this book called How to Read Literature Like a Professor. And one of the
Oh.
big things in it is this professor talks about if you want to learn anything in life, put these three components on it. And that is understand the patterns, understand the metaphor or make a metaphor, and understand the symbols. And with this undoing, this unraveling, that's all I'm doing. I'm looking for the patterns of when has this happened before. The last time I could see it in modernity has been in the dark ages coming into the age of enlightenment. In the age of enlightenment, that's where you had great thinkers and artisans. That's where you had
Mhm.
your Michelangelos, your Da Vinci's, your Rene Descartes, all of these people pushing forward, your Galileos, and all of those folks saying the Earth is not the center.
Mhm.
No, the
Mhm.
Earth is not flat. Don't come for me in those comments. All of these different
Oh my
things.
God, you bring that one. I just brought that up the other day.
Don't
But
come for me.
I'm
Don't come.
not, I'm not.
We are not gonna have that discussion.
But
What I'm
I can see that you're really a psychologist, like you said that you are. Like this is you. This is you can sit and talk to a person and tell them about themselves just by talking with them. I mean, I can
I
see
don't
that.
want to say I can tell somebody about themselves.
Well, you can tell them a little bit about them, like like it's like you just like I always say. When I meet people, a lot of times it's like I've met you before. You just had a different name because of that same personality, that same way you carry
Mhm.
yourself, and the thoughts that you have. But look, we got 3 more clips, so let's play this and let's play another one so we keep rolling here.
All right.
All right, Val.
The idea that we have a certain amount of ability, intelligence, and talent, that idea holds us back because when we don't succeed, we think, oh, I guess I don't have the ability, the talent, the intelligence to be successful at this. And that fixed mindset always comes out when you're vulnerable, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you have criticism or setbacks, or when someone else is really successful much more than you are. So what are you going to do about that? The first step is to listen to that fixed mindset voice. Figure out the situations that trigger it. To say, no, we are going out of our comfort zone. Yes, we did have a setback, but that's a natural part of learning. Yes, that person is better than you are right now. Find out how they got that way and what you can learn from them.
So, Miss Michelle, we were talking on the phone the other day for about an hour, or maybe an hour and a half, and it came up that mindset word, you have a little challenge with that. So let's talk about that because that's why I wanted to play that clip. And
Well,
Mr.
first of all, I want to give shout out to the godmother of the modern movement of mindset. Her actual book is called Mindset. Shout
Right.
out to Dr. Carol Dweck.
Okay.
She did the thing. And
Okay.
I truly believe that that word was what was needed for the time. But
Okay.
remember, words are living, words are spells. They are made to grow and evolve. And for me, I believe, and I'm not trying to say the industry needs to change the name
Right.
because everybody understands mindset. But from the experiences I've had, what I have been taught on professional levels, what I have worked with others, we're finding, I'm talking about the people in the creative space, because
Mhm.
my psychological training is about creativity, existentialism, um, potential, those types of things. So I have been taught that mindset is just the first stage. It's like walking into a dark room and turning on the light switch so that you can see.
Mhm.
It does not mean that you can deal with anything in the room. It does not mean you're proficient with anything in the room. It does not mean that you can even make it through the room to the next room. It
Right.
is where you are setting a frequency to a different channel. It's like a radio station. Once you decide, I want to listen to country music, well, you're at 88 FM and you need to go to 92. The mindset is going to 92. That doesn't mean you turned on the radio station. It just means you went to 92. And
Mhm.
so and there's nothing set about the mind. And as I told you the other day, I'm one of those neuroplasticity girls. And they found out about 20 plus years, going to almost 30. They made a huge discovery that the brain, the actual brain tissue, they used to believe that when you became an adult and the hemispheres were separated, the brain didn't grow anymore. The brain continues to grow until you die. And so the word plasticity simply means malleable. It's highly impressionable. You can change it, you can mold it. And so when you look at a word called mindset, and
Yes.
you now understand that the brain never stops growing and everything you do, it's recording it to the
So
point where new indentations, you
so take
can't
set off.
say mindset.
Take set off then. What would you put in place of set?
I would use either Mind Flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi from the book, another book, Flow. He did a lot of pioneering work into internal motivation and what keeps people in trance-like states to do very complex things. At first, they were like, their minds just must be different, and they realized that there were 5 things that help them. And this is in tandem to what Dr. Dweck said about fixed mindset. That's why I'm bringing it up. So I would say mind flow. And if I couldn't get mind flow, I would do mind shifting. That would be where I would say, because mind shifting, it's that gerund on it. It's that ing on the end where it's continuously moving. And
Mhm.
then the word flow itself denotes movement and change.
I
Because
like
change is
mind
always
flow. I like mind flow. And I'm gonna say Miss Michelle Brilliant Quest taught me this, and we use them. Well, I'm still gonna say mindset, but we're gonna add in. I'm gonna add in mind flow too. I'm gonna add in mind
yeah,
flow.
because you need the power of the keyword is out
I
there.
like
Mindset
mind
is out
flow though.
there.
I like that mind
Yeah,
flow.
so that's the reason why I say it. But I would never tell anybody, don't say
Yeah, I
mindset.
know. Yeah, I know. I know.
But getting back to her fixed mindset, I
Mhm.
I I appreciated it when she came out with the book, because it was the first time there was a striation between the motivations. Excuse me. Most people believed and could used to get mind mind motivation confused with discipline. I did a video on that. You can go watch it on my channel.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and it's because of this fixed versus growth mindset. So really quickly, fixed mindset, think of fixation. A fixed mindset
Mhm.
has you fixed on a point or an item or a goal. And that is the reason why people have a problem moving past it. Because whether you realize it or not, if you haven't taken the time to think about how you think, you will find that you will not find, you will be invisible to the fact that you have a lot of fixed mindsets. And that's why she used the
But
comparison.
those are programs, right? When you say a lot of fixed mindsets, aren't those programs? Like when you say people need to take the time, I always say this: think about what you're thinking about. But I don't know if people do that. But if when you say things are fixed, those were developed during the theta phase, right? They're locked in.
Okay, when you say theta phase, how are
I'm
you
talking about
defining
early
that?
childhood program. I'm talking about early childhood program, like the things that you heard growing up.
Okay. I don't use that term like
Okay.
that.
All
Um,
right. How do you use it?
I use it in the brainwave
Okay.
capacity.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know,
but
you are a what do you call it? Wordsmith, so you know what I'm saying? So
no, I
I
mean,
understand.
I just my mom taught us to have an extreme respect for
Word.
the usage of words. I guess that's why I ended
Yeah.
up being an author. But okay, so going back to what you're talking
Hmm.
about the developmental stages,
Right.
where you have infancy, early childhood, developmental childhood. So I
Hmm.
guess that would be theta. A
Okay.
developmental childhood can be anywhere from 4 to 7 or 7 to 9. But
Right.
between 0 and 9,
Mm.
and see, you got me pulling out this old stuff. You making me go back,
Well,
but
I always use the 0 and 9. I'm
yeah.
always saying
So
that. So.
0 and 9 is where you get imprinted with the blueprint of how you operate.
Hmm.
It is where your defense mechanisms are instilled. It is where your personality is either impacted or released. A
Hmm.
lot of different things happen during that time. Okay. So it's not programming
Okay.
in that sense, it is culture. So you know how you have nurture and to either nurture or nature. Nurture is the culture of the family. Nature is the environment. Programming lives under nature. And I know it might sound like semantics, but
Hmm.
not putting so much emphasis on programming, because programming means different things to different people.
Hmm.
uh, Depending on when you were alive, your programming could be totally different. Think about
Hmm.
the cultures who did not have TV. Think about the cultures who did not have internet. Their quote unquote idea of programming is different, but nurture and nature stays the same. So that's why I
Mm.
say programming can be under that, and it's about your culture and all of that. That's another reason why I made the emphasis to look at personality traits instead of personality typings, because regardless of your nurture and nature, how you were raised, who you were raised around, what community you were raised in, everybody still has those ocean and canoe traits as
Mhm.
humans. So, and this is not, to say you can't use programming. It's just that
Right.
it is an ambiguous term that
Right.
doesn't translate well if you're talking to someone who did not have the same exact culture and upbringing as you. So that's why I shy away from using that term in that
Well,
regard.
I got another term I want to use because we discussed this, and I really want you to talk about it, but it's
Okay.
so much. But let's you ended Dweck, right? So we finished with mindset and mind flow and all that,
Oh, I
right?
just want to make sure I say to the
Okay.
viewers.
Mhm.
Okay, so fixed mindset, think of it as fixation, think of it as a goal, a point. Think of it as you being uh comparing yourself to others. That's where that fixed mindset comes from. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It only matters because you are comparing yourself with what is usual, customary, what is the social contract uh with everyone else. It's a very social thing. Fixed mindset.
Okay.
Growth mindset is a journey. It's also where, and I'm gonna throw this term at y'all, but don't think it's anything wooey. It's called the locus of focus. And locus of
Okay.
focus is whether you are looking outside or inside. So a locus of focus is if you are an external locus person, that means that you believe that the external can work on you. You believe in destiny. You believe you're fated. You believe you don't really have a lot of say so in certain areas. If the Lord willing and the creek don't rise,
Rise. Yeah.
is a locus, an external locus of focus. An internal locus of focus is you are destined, you are sovereign, you make your fate and your destiny. And so
Mhm.
the external locus of focus, where fate, destiny is bigger than you, that would be fixed mindset. Internal locus of
Right.
focus, where you make your path, that's growth. Growth mindset says that there is no one point. You always have a journey. Whenever you hit a point, and next and next and next, and it frees you from comparison, where if you get down to it, the only person that you can compare yourself to is your previous self. And so that's what
Yes.
I wanted to say.
Okay. Now the topic I want to talk about, I'm gonna hold that to the end because I got to. I want to talk about these other two topics right quick. So we're gonna hold that. So Val, let's play this one, and then we got one more.
There's a lot of leaders who are plagued by this, which is we have to do it. Why do we have to do it? Because look how much time and money we've invested.
There's a psychological bias, which I write about. Elliot Aronson, the psychologist, the American psychologist, one of my favorite. They got a group of people and they put them into a very boring book club. Very, very boring. Everyone in there was purposefully, intentionally dull. And then they asked them how good the book club was. And they all gave a score. So these people that were put into there. Then they got another group of people and they made them go through a rigorous testing process and surveys to get into the book club. The people that had done the rigorous testing and surveys and applications to get into the book club, even though it was dull and boring, reported that the book club was amazing and was much better than the people that hadn't fought to get in there. And it speaks to this kind of like sunk cost idea that leaders have, where just because we've worked hard on something, they trick themselves into believing that it is good and then it must be good. It's a psychological bias.
So what do you think about this psychological bias? I have you go ahead first, then I'll
No, you say it. You say it.
well, I'm thinking I was
You're
going
not gonna like what I'm going to say.
yeah. I know I ain't gonna like what you're gonna say. I was gonna oversimplify it.
Okay.
And I know people who watching this you'll be really frustrated if I use this example, but pledging, when you pledge a fraternity or sorority, you have this thing that you go through and everybody goes through it and everybody, whatever happens. So now, because you've gone through that, a lot of people feel like that this thing could be greater than what it really is because I got accepted. I went through this. Nobody else is, and that's oversimplifying it. But I'm just saying, listening to what he's saying is it could be anything. It could be whatever things you get accepted in high school. Like I don't know. I mean, anything that you have to wait and get accepted. You have like it's a approval thing that you have to have. That makes it seem better than sometimes what it really is. And I'm not saying that sororities and fraternities are not great. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it. I'm just using that as a oversimplification of example. So,
Okay, there are two components to this. Okay, so he said it's a psychological bias. It is called the sunk cost analysis. It is also called sunk cost. It is also called previously to this, because this is the pretty version. This is the version that's palatable to the public. It is also called the sacrificial cost, sunk cost. And prior to modernity, with your example, it existed in antiquity, where
wait a minute. Antiquity. What is it?
Old times.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
old times.
Old times. Okay.
Yeah, you can even think biblical.
Okay.
All right. So with sacrificial cost, sunk cost, same thing. In order to keep people from total anarchy, everybody do what they want.
Right.
No morality whatsoever.
Yeah.
They had to find a way to get people to self-govern. There's a difference between rulership and governance. Rulership is where you have a monarch who enforces by way of a military. But what if you got a lot of people and not a lot of military? Then you got to then govern. That's why you can have a monarch over everybody and you can have governors underneath them. Because to govern means to pull out of people a reason for them to keep themselves in line. And thus, you had religion.
I was going to say the black churches, but
I'm talking about
any church. Yeah, it don't have to be.
I'm not getting in trouble.
All right.
Okay, so here's the sunk cost of it. You would require them to offer their first fruits, the best of the first of their crops. You would tell them to bring their fatted calves and all of this meat that they, whatever, and they would bring it to an altar. and they would sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they would sacrifice so they would get more, so that the gods or God would
Mm-hmm.
be favorable to them, and it would keep them in line because now they had an attachment and an anchor to a morality to act right, or God will smite you. You know, it was a whole bunch of God smiting back then. So, depending on where you were, a lot of times that sacrifice became more and more harder to get because the priest and the powers that be learned that when people have to give up something that really hurts, that they have to really work for, they stay in line longer. So
Mm-hmm.
now you've moved over to there's a dragon. We got to give up a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that's got a virgin, we're going to draw lots. And so everybody's like, please, Lord, don't let it be my daughter. Right.
Right.
And so everybody is trying to stay in line so that they can escape the pain of it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you were to come in and say, well, we're not going to do that no more.
Mm-hmm.
Would say, no, I've given up too much. This must be real. It has to be real because if it's not, I can't bear how much I've
Sacrificed.
So it is a sacrificial cost. Napoleon Bonaparte, I would encourage anyone, if you really kind of want to understand the difference between the elite and the plebeians, the public,
Mm-hmm.
go read Napoleon. Napoleon was telling it on them. And that's why they couldn't stand that little upstart Corsican. He would say things like, and I'm paraphrasing, he would say like, give me one priest. One priest can do the work of 1,000 soldiers on the minds of the many. He would say things like, religion is enforced on the people to keep them from killing the rich. He would say stuff like that.
Mm.
Your sacrifice had to mean something, right? You couldn't be just getting got. One of the worst things that people hate is to be proven that they've been made a fool out of.
Yeah.
So now they've prettied up that word and called it sunken cost.
So Napoleon, is that a autobiography or a biography on him? Is that
You just
him?
they have some, you don't even have to go read the autobiography.
Yeah,
You can
just
pull up
Google.
Napoleon Bonaparte
Yeah.
quotes.
Some of his quotes. Yeah, I got you.
Famous quotes. You might do famous quotes about religion or whatever. I'm just a geek and I like
got you. I got you.
biographies, so I read them.
All right.
But going back to the clip you played
Mhm.
with the example of, because I used to have to run some of those kinds of experiments,
Mhm.
and there was a lot in there that was not just a psychological bias. There is the imprint of the crowd. Edward Bernays, Henry Lamont Levert, I have to look up his last name, and a French guy with the famous book Les Crowd. I've read them so long ago, they're fuzzy right now. But they talk about the impact of how you behave as part of the crowd as opposed to how you behave as part of the individual. And when you have people in the crowd, you have to take into account the input of nobody wanting to be outside of the crowd.
Outside, yeah.
And so to me, that's a muddied kind of representation. Even though I love Simon Sinek,
Right.
that example is muddied.
Have you seen the video? And I seen it was a while back of the one person being in the room and how they act, and then you got 5 other people in there, and you kind of following what they're doing.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the reference I'm talking about. That the crowd makes you do things, because they were talking about why do people become murderers when you place them in a crowd? That why do you call a crowd? Why can a crowd turn into a mob? Because it behaves differently. And so that's all I'm saying about that little part. But I wanted to make sure I gave people that this is nothing new. They've just prettied it up with terms that people can stomach today. And because people sacrifice to this day, you can think about political people. What happens when you've given them money and you've done all this kind of stuff, and the evidence is blaring that
Right.
they're trying to do you. They don't like you. They're not for you. But because you have shown out to your family, your friends, you've painted your house certain colors. You've done all these things in the name of this political faction. You're going to keep on, even though secretly you're like, something's not right.
Right.
And it's because of the sacrificial sunk cost analysis.
I got you.
You're in too far. It
Right.
hurts the psyche. It creates what we call a dissonance, a friction that's very untenable. It's very uncomfortable. Where, are you going to believe your lying eyes and your heart? Or are you going to say, well, the sacrifice makes it true?
When you say you're in too far, I'm sure. Well, I'm thinking of a person in Vegas that sat at the table with $5 grand.
Yes.
Now he's down to $5.
Same.
You're like, I got
That is sunk
I'm in
cost.
too deep now. Yeah.
That's sunk cost. It's the same thing.
Right.
I
So
got
Val,
it.
let's play that last one, Val, and then we can talk about what I want to talk about.
Oh dear.
Time is the currency we're playing with in every moment of our lives. It's the center point of our influence. I talk about the roulette table of my life. It's a frame I think through where we wake up in the morning with these 24 chips. If you spend 8 hours sleeping, you wake up with 16 chips left. And how you place those chips on this roulette table that sits in front of us determines all of our outcomes in our lives. So I've chosen now to allocate 2 chips to fitness. The roulette table spins and I get my returns. In the context of time and death and time management, the most important question to answer, the fundamental, is discipline. How can I allocate more of these chips to the things that are in line with my values? Where does this thing called discipline come from? If it underpins everything we do.
You could tell I like that guy because that's the second clip, but he's not even. I think he just turned 30 years old too, and he
Right.
has.
And I was going to say that I'm familiar with him, and that clip that you just played applies to younger people. Time behaves differently depending on what season you're in.
Wow.
And so the allocation for him is going to change. It's going to change in about 5 years, actually.
Right.
And because there is a certain elasticity of time when you're younger, because more grace is afforded you because you haven't had as many experiences. So if you were to take those same 24 chips and you were to give them to somebody in my age group, I would allocate them differently. And that would work for me because time works differently for me. Because time is a construct of this dimension. And if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing by being sovereign over my mind, I understand that unlike that that young man, that time doesn't rule me. I am in cahoots with time. I can work with time because once you get to my age, you start to see some things. You start to realize, if I do X, then time will reward me with Y. If I do, case in point, and I've talked about this on my channel. When you get to the point where you have lived some years, you'll start to understand that discipline is not as strong as it used to be. You notice he used the word discipline. He's going to eventually learn that word is not the word he wants. He wants motivation, internal motivation. And when you've lived enough years for discipline to have failed you, and when I say failed you, meaning it put you down low, you couldn't sustain it. No matter what you wanted to do, you burned out, you got sick. Everybody's got that story. If they live long enough and enough water goes under their bridge, they're going to start to learn what discipline really is. And like I said, I've talked about this, mistaking motivation for discipline. So to his point, in about 5 years, he's going to start switching out discipline because those young folk, they can keep grinding. They can keep working. They can keep exchanging exertion for time. But as you get older and you can't do that, you start learning, work smarter than harder.
It's like I see a lot of guys talk a lot of smack, like when I post a video of me working out or something, and they 35 or 40, you know what I'm saying? They talking smack. I'm thinking to myself, wait till you get to this age. Let's see if you can even do half of that because things going to change for you. You know what I'm saying? But at that point, you thinking, the world is mine. You're thinking, yeah, I know how to, I'm gonna play these chips like this all the time. No, you're not. You're not.
Right.
It's gonna, things
And I mean,
gonna change.
and it's not for us to snatch that learning from them. That's like
Right.
equivalent to pulling the wings off of a butterfly trying to get out of a cocoon. You harm them. So I don't say anything because that's their truth for right now.
Mhm.
And that's what
Right.
they're supposed to be doing. You're
Right.
supposed to be running yourself ragged with grinding and
Yeah.
disciplining yourself. And so that you can truly appreciate when you finally get to the end of it and figure out this wasn't the answer.
Right.
This was just a component. Like I said, motivation, especially internal motivation.
Mhm.
Internal motivation, you can't teach it. It can't be caught. It can only be built and sustained. And that is through learning
Mhm.
yourself and working on curiosity, working on purpose, mastery, working on being autonomous, meaning that you can do things
Mhm.
on your own. You're self-sufficient. You have resilience, if you will, and passion. And and it's not just passion, because passion pairs well with with discipline, uh, but it doesn't sustain it. Internal motivation is the continuous motor. Discipline is simply the rocket boosters to get you lift off. And once you gain the momentum, they fall away. Discipline is simply a catalyst to get you going, to make you continue to go, or to give you the final push to finish. But most people in their younger years, they think I just have to grind and be determined all the time. And it's because they got more life ahead of them.
Right. Right.
than we do. And so the wisdom doesn't start showing up to like, okay, I can work with time differently by doing things like establishing simple routines that I don't have to give a lot of brain power to, because I got a lot of stuff in here and
Right.
I can't be
Right.
wasting on foolishness.
Right.
And
Right.
so if I
Right.
get my routine straight and I do them, I'll save this amount of time. It's kind of like when you were growing up, if you were blessed like I was to be around grandparents. I
Mhm.
learned when I was a kid how they would teach us, okay, it is planting season. We're planting this stuff. We have to rotate. So this year, this goes here, that goes there. I knew the seasons just like, thinking about it,
Mhm.
because I knew when the first crops in the spring were going to be popping off, when the later crops in the fall were going to, come in. My grandmother was teaching us how to can and put away peas,
Oh
shell, and all
man.
this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And she was like, we'll do it now, but we'll eat good for 5-6 months. So we do it now. That's old wisdom. Kids, I mean,
Yeah, I know it's like the what people are doing now is like they making one time all together like seed harvest time. No, it's seed time, then it's harvest time. But a
that's
lot of
right.
people trying to do seed harvest time. It's not, it doesn't work that way. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And you learn that as you go along, because I think about so much I learned from my grandmother just sitting,
Mhm.
was just shelling those peas, and
Yes.
she was talking, and she was
Yes.
making homemade ice cream, and
Yes. Oh,
I'm
definitely.
saying so much
Definitely.
knowledge was there. But let me get to my point.
All
See if
right.
you remember. I'll see if you remember the conversation when we were talking.
You talking about the
And,
young lady?
mm-mm,
Oh, okay.
talking about another conversation we had, and see if you can remember the word that we talked about, because we were discussing the Diddy situation. And
Okay.
is one word I brought up, and you said, no, that could be it, but it also could be this. We get it mixed up, we get it confused.
Karma.
Karma, yes.
Yes. All
So
right.
I was talking karma, and you started talking something else. What was that?
Okay. Well, let me preface this. If you
Mhm.
go and look up the definition of karma, you will
Mhm.
see that it is a Hindu Buddhist spiritual concept
Mhm.
whereby you have debts of deficiencies that you have brought from lifetime to lifetime.
Mhm.
And sometimes you will continue to repeat those deficiencies in this lifetime, but not necessarily. And so, in the concept of dharma, you have to quote unquote burn it off through your lifetimes so that you can ascend. And karma is also there to provide you with a means to grow past suffering. Okay.
Okay.
What I was saying was that a lot of times a word can take off and they will truncate off or forget the core of what the word means. The word karmic means past many lifetimes. Go look it up, y'all. Don't take my word for it. And what people don't understand, that there are certain what we call subtle laws that look like karma, but they're not.
Okay.
And they can trick you.
Okay.
And that one of those laws is the law. If you Christian and even some other religions, you already know it. It's called the law of sowing and reaping.
Reaping.
So much so that you got parables from Christ and other major leaders. And to make sure the kiddos got it, you got parables and fables of animals to teach you sowing and reaping.
But see, that's where people will come in and say karma and sowing and reaping is the same.
And it's not semantics. And the reason why you say that is because if you say that the law of sowing and reaping is karma, what about the person who does well all their life here only to suffer a great tragedy where it could have been karma?
Say it again now.
What if someone who did not do anything bad in this lifetime still gets dealt a bad hand? Something bad happens. In theory, that could be karma because it could have been from another lifetime.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Understand
but sowing
the
and
word
reaping,
you're using.
sowing and reaping would not be from another lifetime. It would be from
this one. You didn't pay your light bill. Now your lights are off. That's sowing and reaping.
Reaping. Okay. Okay. So if you do so if you do something to a person and that person, I mean, you're not say you commit a crime or you do something bad to a person, like you steal from them, you're saying that the reaping part would happen in this lifetime, karma might not.
Right. Or both of them. Because the funny part about sowing and reaping, if you sow negatively based on what karma says, what you did in this lifetime, even if you thought you got away with it, and your next one, it's coming back as karma.
But then that goes to a lot of people say, well, it's over with after this. It's no more, nothing else is, and that's a different thought process.
And that is why I want people to go look up the words. That word belongs to religions that believe in reincarnation. And that is why you need to understand what you're throwing out, what you're just saying. Now I'm a person that I know the power of words. Words are so powerful that you can speak them and order someone's death. And you never laid a hand on them, but they died.
Words are, I tell people all the time, they're affirmations. People say, I don't speak affirmations. No, you don't speak positive affirmations from a sheet of paper. But every time you open your mouth, that's an affirmation. You're saying something.
The very word grammar comes from the word grimoire, which is a collection of spells, which are collections of words.
God, the wordsmith is breaking it down.
I mean, I think that's general knowledge. So,
no, it's not. No, that's just you. That's your knowledge and knowing all that. Everybody's not thinking that way. Everybody don't know that, don't have that knowledge.
There is a plugin that if you can put it on your browser, and it is called Etymology Online, and it's spelled ETYMONLINE. to malign. And it is so say
You
for
say
instance you want
L-Y, you say L-Y-N-E?
it's E, it's spelled
E-T-Y-M-O-N.
ETYMONLINE.
Oh, L-I-N-E.
And it's a website and a Chrome extension. And so if you just start clicking on a word and click that, it will tell you the formation of the word, the root where it came from. And now the only thing is it doesn't go past like the first it doesn't, I haven't seen anything past 1000 AD. But for 95% of the words that we use today, it's going to give you their root, it's going to give you their history. And one of the things to your dear listeners, and thank you all for listening, to me, go back and look at what part of that word, the core of it, that is still in effect right now. So say, for instance, you go and you look at the word nice, and you realize that nice was a pejorative. It was a bad word. You didn't want somebody to call you nice back then.
Really?
But over the years, nice became good. You can see the evolution of that word. But then go back and look at a word like true or sincere. They still mean, for the most part, what they did back when they were first recorded. Those words are what we would call energy power words, because the more people who have used a word with that meaning to it, the word has retained its power. So when you think about it, still on emails, what's one of the things that you say? Sometimes people write out sincerely and put their name.
Mm-hmm.
That word has a lot of power. True has a lot of power. And so that's just a baseline of starting to understand that energy can neither be destroyed nor created. It is always changing into and out of form. And because of that, energy don't lie. Words are part of energy. And you can see for yourself, not what Michelle said. You can start to see, oh my God, this word has been meaning this for 600 years. I've actually told people, go and use the kind of words, the good kind of words with that kind of power. Speak those things out. That word will work for you.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and man, I'm gonna bring you back as many times as I can, because
thank you for having me.
the world needs to hear this. And man, for you get to be big as Oprah, I've got you here. So, but I'm telling you, your information is powerful. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, keep talking your talk. Keep talking your talk, because, man, what would you want to say to everybody when we wrap this up? What do you want to say about Brilliant Quest, and should they just
okay. Well, what I would want to say is everyone starts at the beginning of perfection. And what I want you to know is you don't have to be confident. You don't have to know a lot. You just need to be able to move. Don't try to start, just do. Don't try to know a lot, just be. The first thing we ever are is beings. Like I said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the order that I want you to remember is to be who it is that you want to be, so that you can behave to do the stuff that person does, so that you can have the stuff of who you are. Don't get it confused. Stop doing stuff so that you can have things, so that you can finally believe that you are this being. And do it scared, but courageous. That's all I want you to do. One step at a time. All of the lies that your mind will tell you, understand that a lot of those are not your thoughts. Get outside of them. Interview them. Ask them, where is this true? Give me proof. Give me evidence.
right?
and command that these thoughts answer for themselves. They cannot, as the kids say, live rent free in your head. That's what I would say. And then come on over to Brilliant Quest with an S on the end of it, and check us out. Giving you insights on the daily.
Wow. Man, I appreciate this. I swear, it's been another episode of Elite Psyche, and I'm telling y'all, go subscribe, like, do all this. Go to Brilliant Quest, subscribe, like, do all this stuff, because this information needs to be out there. It needs to. Everybody needs to hear it. But it's up to you all to spread it. Y'all got to spread the word and spread the information. And we're gonna bring you back. This is not the last time that we're gonna see you on the Elite Psyche. So man, this is like finishing a great book. You don't want to end the book. Like when the book is over, like, God, dog, it's over with. It's like, like, did you read The Alchemist?
Yes, I usually try to read it each year.
Wow, that book is like, so yeah. So it's over with, but we'll be back. And not only that, I'm gonna play this back 100 times. So it's like rereading the book. I remember my man, I can't think his name, but he always say, Tony Fleming, what are you rereading? You need to be rereading some things. So, but I'm gonna be rewatching this episode. So, all right. Well, thank you. We have to end it. But go subscribe, like, and do all those things. So appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the all button and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to have a lot of good interviews on this podcast.